The door of the upscale Philadelphia restaurant swung open, sending a blast of autumn air across the crowded dining room. Joe Frazier froze mid-bite, his fork suspended between plate and mouth. There, framed in the doorway like a ghost from the past, stood Muhammad Ali. 20 years had passed since they'd last been face-to-face, but Frazier would recognize that silhouette anywhere, even with Ali's frame now thinner, more stooped, his movements slowed by Parkinson's disease. The restaurant's ambient chatter faded as Frazier's pulse hammered in his ears. Some grudges never die, and theirs was legendary. 3 brutal fights, years of public insults. Gorilla, Uncle Tom, words that cut deeper than any punch. Frazier set down his fork with deliberate control. People at nearby tables sensed the sudden tension and turned to stare. A waiter approaching Ali stopped short, recognition dawning on his face. "Sir, would you like—" the waiter began, but Ali moved past him, his eyes locked on Frazier's table in the corner. Frazier's son urged quietly, "Pop, we can leave if you want." "No," Frazier said, his voice gravel rough with emotion. "Been running from this moment too long already." Ali approached with that distinctive shuffle, part Parkinson's tremor, part echo of his once floating boxing style. The restaurant had gone eerily quiet. Everyone knew the history between these two men. The brutal trilogy of fights, Thrilla in Manila, the years of bitterness that followed. Ali stopped at Frazier's table. His hands trembled slightly, but his gaze was steady. For a long, tense moment, neither man spoke. Two titans of the ring, now older, frailer, but still carrying the weight of their shared history. Then Ali spoke, his voice softer than in his prime, but with undeniable clarity. "I've been looking for you, Joe. Not sorry. Not how are you?" 4 simple words that hung in the air between them like an unthrown punch. Frazier's jaw tightened. "Well, you found me. Question is, what for?" His family tensed around him, ready to intervene if needed. Ali slowly pulled out an empty chair without asking. "Mind if I sit? These legs ain't what they used to be." Without waiting for permission, he lowered himself into the seat. "You're looking good, Joe. Still in fighting shape." Frazier's daughter touched his arm gently, a silent plea for restraint. The restaurant manager hovered nervously nearby, likely calculating the PR disaster of 2 boxing legends coming to blows in his establishment. 20 years, Frazier said, his voice low. 20 years of words between us, and that's what you open with? That you've been looking for me?" Ali's hands trembled on the table. "Never been good with apologies, Joe. You know that." A hint of the old mischievous smile flickered across his face. "Figured I'd start with the truth instead." "Truth," Frazier repeated, the word bitter on his tongue. "From the man who called me an Uncle Tom, who called me a gorilla. That truth?" A waiter approached cautiously, but Ali waved him away without looking. The tremor in his hand was more pronounced now. "I said a lot of things I shouldn't have. We both know it was to sell tickets, to make the fights bigger." Frazier's son leaned forward. "With all due respect, Mr. Ali, those words followed my father for years. They weren't just promotion." Ali nodded slowly. "That's why I've been looking for you, Joe. Not for the cameras, not for show." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small worn envelope. "I wrote this 5 years ago. Been carrying it ever since, hoping I'd run into you." Frazier stared at the envelope, suspicious. "What's this? Some publicity stunt?" "No cameras here, Joe. Just us." "Open it." Ali pushed the envelope across the table with trembling fingers. Frazier made no move to take it. The wounds were too deep, the history too painful. The envelope sat between them like a challenge. "You don't have to forgive me," Ali said quietly. "Just read it, then I'll go." Somewhere in the restaurant, a glass shattered, breaking the tension. Frazier's daughter whispered something in his ear. Finally, with calloused fingers that had once landed the most famous left hook in boxing history, Frazier picked up the envelope. "This better not be another one of your games, Ali," he warned. But there was something different in his voice now. Curiosity, perhaps, or the faintest trace of the respect that had once existed between them, before the insults, before Manila had nearly killed them both. Ali simply nodded. "No games? Not anymore." Frazier tore open the envelope. The letter was handwritten, the penmanship shaky but recognizable as Ali's. Frazier's eyes moved across the page, his expression unreadable. The restaurant remained hushed, everyone straining to catch a glimpse of this unexpected reunion. History was unfolding before them, though none knew exactly what was written on those pages. "You wrote this 5 years ago?" Frazier finally asked, looking up from the letter. Allie nodded. "Carried it everywhere, Joe. Never knew when our paths might cross." Frazier folded the letter carefully and slipped it into his jacket pocket. "You always did have a way with words." His tone was impossible to read, somewhere between grudging respect and lingering anger. "Not like you had a way with that left hook," Allie replied, a ghost of his old smile appearing. "Still feel it sometimes, you know. Right here." He tapped his jaw. For the first time, the faintest hint of a smile touched Frazier's lips. "Good. Meant for you to remember it." Allie's daughter Layla had entered the restaurant now, spotting her father at Frazier's table. She approached cautiously, nodding respectfully to Frazier. "Everything okay here, Dad?" "Fine, baby," Allie reassured her. "Just catching up with an old friend." Frazier raised an eyebrow at the word friend but didn't contradict him. Instead, he asked, "You hungry, Allie? Or you just come here to interrupt my dinner?" It wasn't quite forgiveness, but it was an opening. Allie recognized it for what it was. "Could eat," Allie admitted. "If that's an invitation." Frazier gestured to the empty chair beside him. "Might as well. Already ruined the quiet evening I had planned." The restaurant slowly returned to its normal buzz as Allie settled in. The waiter approached again, this time with menus. The two boxing legends, whose rivalry had defined an era, whose hatred had seemed eternal, sat together at the same table for the first time in decades. "So what have you been doing with yourself, Joe?" Allie asked, his voice growing stronger as his initial nervousness faded. "Besides avoiding me? Running my gym, working with kids, staying out of trouble." Frazier's tone remained guarded, but the deadly edge had softened. "You still running your mouth for a living?" Allie chuckled. "Not as much as I used to. Words don't come as easy now." He gestured to his trembling hands. "Body's slowing down too." "Join the club," Frazier said, rotating his shoulder with a grimace. "Manila left me with souvenirs too. Wake up every morning feeling like I went 15 rounds the night before." "Worth it though?" Allie asked, suddenly serious. Frazier considered the question. "The fights? The fame? The money?" He shook his head. "Some days yes, some days no." "You?" "Same," Allie admitted. "Though I miss the roar of the crowd. Nothing like it in the world." A young man approached their table hesitantly, clutching a napkin and pen. "Mr. Frazier, Mr. Allie, I'm sorry to interrupt, but could I possibly get your autographs? My father was your biggest fan. Both of you." The two boxers exchanged a look. For a moment it seemed Frazier might refuse. Then he nodded and took the pen. "What's your father's name, son?" "William, sir. He passed last year. Watched every one of your fights." Frazier signed the napkin with care. To William, "Your son's doing you proud." He passed the pen to Allie. Allie's hand trembled badly as he tried to write. Without comment, Frazier reached over and steadied Allie's hand with his own. Together they completed the signature. "Thank you both," the young man said, eyes glistening. This would have meant the world to him. As he walked away, Allie's daughter Layla remarked quietly, "That was kind of you, Mr. Frazier." Frazier shrugged. "Wasn't for him, was for his father. Fans stuck with us through everything. They deserve something back." A silence fell over the table, more comfortable than before, but still charged with unspoken history. Frazier's son excused himself to make a phone call, while his daughter engaged Layla in conversation about her own boxing career. "She fights like you," Frazier said unexpectedly, nodding toward Layla. "Got that same confidence?" Allie's face lit up at the compliment to his daughter. "Got her mother's smarts, though. Makes better decisions than I ever did." "Hard not to," Frazier replied dryly, but there was a hint of humor in his voice now. Allie leaned forward slightly. "Joe, about what was in that letter." "Not here." Frazier cut him off. "Not now. I read it. That's enough for tonight." Allie nodded, accepting the boundary. "Fair enough." The waiter arrived with their meals. As they ate, the conversation gradually shifted to safer topics. Boxing today versus their era, mutual acquaintances, grandchildren. To anyone watching, it might have seemed like any dinner between old colleagues, if you ignored the occasional tension that still crackled between them when certain subjects arose. As the evening wound down, Allie pushed his plate away and fixed Frazier with a serious look. "One thing I need to know, Joe. That last fight in Manila, at the end, were you really going to come out for the 15th? The question hung in the air between them. Everyone at the table knew the story. How Frazier's trainer Eddie Futch had stopped the fight after the 14th round, despite Frazier's protests. How Ali had later said he had been ready to quit himself, that the fight had taken him closer to death than he'd ever been. Frazier met Ali's gaze steadily. Every day for 20 years I've asked myself that same question. He paused. Truth is, I don't know if I could have, but I'd have died trying. Ali nodded slowly. That's what I thought. He extended his trembling hand across the table. Thank you for that fight, Joe. Made me better than I had any right to be. The morning after their unexpected dinner, Joe Frazier arrived at his gym in North Philadelphia 2 hours earlier than usual. Sleep had been elusive, his mind replaying snippets of conversation with Ali, wrestling with emotions he'd thought long buried. The letter sat on his nightstand, read and reread through the night. Now, as dawn broke over the city, he found himself needing the familiar comfort of his gym, the smell of sweat and leather, the rhythm of speed bags, the grunt of effort. To his surprise, he wasn't the first to arrive. A solitary figure sat on the steps outside, hunched against the October chill. Thought I might find you here, Muhammad Ali said, rising slowly as Frazier approached. Still an early riser, I see. Frazier stopped a few feet away, keys dangling from his hand. What are you doing here, Ali? Couldn't sleep? Ali shrugged. Figured you might be in the same boat. Thought maybe we could talk. Really talk. Without the family around. Frazier considered him for a long moment, then moved past to unlock the door. Come on in. But I've got work to do. Can't stand around jawing all day like some people. Ali smiled at the familiar jab and followed him inside. The gym was dark until Frazier flipped the switches, illuminating a space that was decidedly old school. Heavy bags hung in rows, a regulation ring dominated the center, and motivational quotes covered the walls. No fancy equipment, no frills. Just the essentials, like Frazier himself. Place hasn't changed much, Ali observed, running a hand along the ring ropes. Works fine as it is, Frazier replied, hanging up his coat. Coffee? If you're offering. Frazier moved to a small office area and started a pot brewing. Ali wandered the gym, examining photos on the walls, many featuring Frazier with young boxers, a few showing his professional victories. Notably absent were any images of the Ali-Frazier fights despite their historical significance. You've done good work here, Ali said, gesturing to a newspaper clipping about Frazier's youth program. Getting kids off the streets, giving them direction. Frazier grunted non-committally as he returned with 2 steaming mugs. Someone's got to do it. He handed Ali a cup. So talk. That's what you came for, isn't it? Ali took the coffee carefully in both hands to steady it. Been thinking about what you said. About Manila. About dying in the ring. Ancient history, Frazier said dismissively. Not to me. Ali sipped his coffee. That fight. It changed me, Joe. Not just physically. Something deeper. Frazier's expression remained impassive, but he was listening. I said things before that fight. Terrible things. Thought it was just promotion, just getting in your head. Ali shook his head slowly. Didn't understand what those words meant to you. Not really. Not until years later. You understood, Frazier countered. You just didn't care. I was just another opponent to you. Ali looked up sharply. No, never that. You were the measure, Joe. Always were. The one I judged myself against. A young boxer entered the gym, stopping short when he recognized Ali. Frazier nodded to him. Start your road work, Marcus. 3 miles today. The young man nodded, still staring at Ali in awe before heading back out. You've got his respect, Frazier observed once they were alone again. All these kids, they look at you like you're some kind of god. Rather have your respect, Ali said quietly. Frazier snorted. Since when? You spent years tearing me down, making me the villain in your story. I was wrong. The words hung in the air between them, stark and unadorned. That's what I've been trying to tell you. What I wrote in that letter. Frazier set down his coffee cup with deliberate care. 20 years, Ali. 20 years of carrying those words around. Gorilla. Uncle Tom. Do you have any idea what that did to me? To my family? I can't take it back, Ali admitted. Wish I could. My kids got bullied because of your mouth. People thought I was a traitor to my race because of your words. And you want what from me now? Forgiveness? Absolution? Ali shook his head. Just understanding. Maybe a chance to make it right somehow. Frazier turned away, moving toward a heavy bag. Without wrapping his hands, he threw a left hook that made the bag swing wildly. Despite his age, the power was still there. Some things can't be made right, Allie. Some wounds don't heal. I know, Allie said softly, but I had to try. Frazier threw another punch, then another, falling into a rhythm. Allie watched silently, respecting the moment. Finally, Frazier stopped, breathing heavily, and turned back to his former rival. Why now? He demanded. After all these years, why come looking for me now? Allie gestured to his trembling hands. Time's running short, Joe. For both of us. Don't want to leave things unsaid. Don't want to leave the bitterness between us. For you or for me? Frazier challenged. For both of us, Allie replied. For history. For those kids who look up to us. Frazier laughed bitterly. Always thinking about your legacy. Our legacy, Allie corrected him. Like it or not, we're connected, Joe. Forever. Can't tell my story without telling yours. The gym door opened again as more young boxers arrived for morning training. They stopped at the threshold, eyes wide at the sight of the two legends. Go on, Frazier told them. Warm up. I'll be with you in 5. As the youngsters moved to follow his instructions, still casting odd glances at Allie, Frazier turned back to his former nemesis. I've got work to do here, he said, not unkindly. Real work. These kids need me. Allie nodded, understanding the dismissal. I'm in town until tomorrow, staying at the Marriott downtown. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. My number, if you want to continue this conversation. Frazier hesitated, then took the card. Don't hold your breath. Allie smiled sadly. Never do any more, Joe. Learned that lesson in Manila. He set down his coffee cup. Thank you for the coffee. And for reading the letter. As Allie made his way toward the door, one of the young boxers, no more than 15, approached him hesitantly. Mr. Ali, would you mind showing me how you did the rope-a-dope, just once? Allie glanced at Frazier, silently asking permission in his gym. After a moment, Frazier nodded. Go ahead. Show him. Boy might as well learn from the best. It was the closest thing to a compliment that had passed between them in decades. Allie's face lit up with a shadow of his old smile. The rope-a-dope, huh? Well, first thing you need is someone trying to take your head off. He winked at Frazier. Had the perfect partner for that. The Philadelphia Sports Writers Association annual banquet was in full swing at the downtown Marriott ballroom. Hundreds of guests in formal attire mingled among tables adorned with white linens and centerpieces of red and blue flowers. At the head table sat the night's honorees, legendary athletes being recognized for their contributions to Philadelphia sports history. Muhammad Ali adjusted his bow tie nervously, scanning the entrance for the 100th time. Beside him, his daughter Layla squeezed his hand reassuringly. He might not come, Dad, she said gently. You have to be prepared for that. Ali nodded, though his eyes remained fixed on the door. 3 days had passed since his conversation with Joe Frazier at the gym. 3 days with no call, no message. The banquet organizers had assured Ali that Frazier had received his invitation to be a surprise guest of honor, but there had been no confirmation he would attend. He'll come, Ali said with more confidence than he felt. Smoke and Joe never backed down from a challenge. The association president approached the microphone, tapping it twice to quiet the room. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could please take your seats, we're about to begin our program. The crowd settled as the first awards were presented. Ali found it difficult to concentrate, his attention constantly drawn to the ballroom doors. When it was his turn to be recognized, he moved slowly to the podium, his gait unsteady, but his back straight with dignity. It is my great honor, the president announced, to present our Lifetime Achievement Award to the man known worldwide as the greatest, Muhammad Ali. The room erupted in applause as Ali accepted the plaque with trembling hands. He leaned toward the microphone, his voice soft but clear. Thank you for this honor, he began. Philadelphia has always held a special place in my heart, though not always for the easiest reasons. A knowing chuckle rippled through the crowd. This city gave me some of my toughest fights and some of my greatest moments. He paused, gathering his thoughts. But I didn't come here tonight to talk about myself. I came to talk about a man who embodies the spirit of this city more than anyone I've ever known. A man of uncommon courage, determination, and heart. Ali's eyes scanned the room once more. Joe Frazier and I shared a rivalry that defined boxing for a generation. We fought 3 times. Battles that took pieces of both of us that we never got back. But those fights gave the world something special, something that transcended sport. He gripped the podium to steady himself. Many of you know that Joe and I have had our differences over the years. Words were said that couldn't be taken back, actions that couldn't be undone. For my part in that, I want to say publicly what I recently said to Joe privately. I was wrong, and I am sorry. A hush fell over the room. Allie rarely apologized for anything, and never so publicly. Joe Frazier deserves better than to be remembered as the foil in my story. He is his own man, with his own legacy, a champion in every sense of the word. Allie took a deep breath. I had hoped Joe would be here tonight so I could honor him properly, but since when have you ever done anything properly, Allie? The familiar, raspy voice came from the back of the ballroom. The crowd turned as one to see Joe Frazier standing in the doorway, dressed in an immaculate tuxedo, his championship ring gleaming on his finger. A path cleared as Frazier made his way toward the podium. The room was silent, the tension palpable. No one, not even the event organizers, knew exactly what was about to happen. Allie watched Frazier's approach, his expression a mixture of surprise, hope, and apprehension. When Frazier reached the stage, he extended his hand. After the slightest hesitation, Allie took it. The ballroom erupted in applause. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment. Two aging warriors, once bitter enemies, clasping hands at last. Frazier leaned into the microphone. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was terrible. Then more quietly to Allie. Didn't think I was coming, did you? Allie grinned. Never doubted it for a second, Joe. Frazier turned to address the crowd. This man here talks too much. Always has. Laughter rippled through the audience. But tonight he said something true. Our fights gave the world something special. Something that couldn't have happened without both of us. He looked at Allie. You can't have light without shadow. Can't have Allie without Frazier. Allie nodded, visibly moved. Now, Frazier continued, I've been carrying something around for a long time. Something heavy. And tonight, I'm putting it down. He reached into his jacket and pulled out Allie's letter. This letter here, Allie's been trying to apologize to me for years. Wrote down things he couldn't say to my face. The room went completely still. I read it many times. Frazier's voice grew serious. There are things between us that can't be erased, hurts that won't ever fully heal. But there's something else too, something like respect. He looked directly at Allie. I accept your apology, Mohammed. Not for you, for me, because it's time. Allie's eyes glistened with unshed tears. Without a word, he opened his arms. After a moment's hesitation, Frazier stepped forward into the embrace. The crowd rose to their feet in a thunderous standing ovation. Many were openly weeping at the sight of this long-awaited reconciliation. Journalists scrambled to capture the historic moment. When they finally separated, both men were smiling, genuine smiles that reached their eyes. So what were those first words you were so nervous about saying to me at the restaurant? Frazier asked. Their microphones now off as the program continued around them. Allie chuckled. I've been looking for you, Joe. That's it? All that build-up for 4 words? Sometimes the simplest words are the hardest to say. Frazier nodded thoughtfully. Know what I would have said if you hadn't spoken first? What's that? Frazier's smile widened. Took you long enough? The boxing gym in North Philadelphia was unusually crowded that Saturday morning. Word had spread quickly. The great Muhammad Ali would be making an appearance alongside Joe Frazier to work with the neighborhood kids. Parents, children, local politicians, and media representatives packed the space, creating an atmosphere of anticipation and excitement. Frazier moved through the crowd with practiced ease, greeting familiar faces, introducing Allie to his regular students. The two former champions, once the bitterest of rivals, now moved in surprising harmony. Their reconciliation at the sports banquet had made headlines worldwide, but this was different. This was them choosing to be in each other's company, to work together on something meaningful. All right, everybody settle down, Frazier called out, bringing the chattering crowd to attention. We're here to teach these kids something about boxing, and maybe something about life too. Allie stood beside him, nodding his agreement. His tremors were pronounced today, but his eyes were clear and focused. First things first, Frazier continued. Boxing isn't about hurting people. It's about discipline, respect, controlling yourself when everything in you wants to let loose, and about getting back up when you fall, Allie added softly. No matter how many times you go down. They organized the children into groups, demonstrating basic techniques, Despite their physical limitations, both men still possessed an innate understanding of the sweet science that transcended their disabilities. Ali showed a young girl how to snap a jab, while Frazier taught a skinny boy how to throw his signature left hook. Balance is everything, Frazier instructed. Power comes from the ground up. A local news crew filmed as the two legends moved among the children, offering guidance, encouragement, and occasional gentle correction. The reporter approached them during a water break. This is quite a sight. Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali working together. Did you ever imagine this day would come? Frazier glanced at Ali before answering. Life's long if you're lucky. Gives you time to see things differently. And you, Mr. Ali? After everything that's passed between you two, how does it feel to be here today? Ali's response came slowly, but clearly. Feels right. Should have happened sooner. The reporter pressed on. Your rivalry was legendary, but it was also deeply personal. What changed? Frazier's expression darkened slightly. Some things are private, even now. Ali placed a trembling hand on Frazier's shoulder. What Joe means is, we found something more important than old grudges. And what's that? The reporter asked. Ali gestured to the gym full of children. The future. These kids. They're watching us, learning from what we do, not just what we say. Frazier nodded. Time runs out for everybody. Gotta make it count while you can. As the reporter moved away, Frazier turned to Ali. They always want the simple story, don't they? The neat ending. Life ain't neat, Ali replied. Neither is forgiveness. Who said anything about forgiveness? Frazier said, but there was no real heat in his words. They returned to the children, guiding them through footwork drills. One boy, about 12 years old, was struggling with his coordination. Frustration etched across his face. He finally threw his gloves down. I can't do it, it's too hard. The gym went quiet. Frazier approached the boy slowly. What's your name, son? Marcus. Well, Marcus, you're right about one thing. It is hard. Frazier gestured to Ali. Ask him about the thrilla in Manila. Ask him if that was hard. Ali stepped forward, his movements deliberate. Hardest thing I ever did, he said to the boy. Asked my trainer to cut off my gloves after the 14th round. Couldn't see, could barely stand. But his trainer wouldn't do it, Frazier continued. And then my trainer stopped the fight instead. Neither of us quit, but both of us wanted to. The boy looked between them, wide-eyed. For real? For real? They answered simultaneously, then glanced at each other in surprise. The point is, Frazier said, hard is what makes it worth doing. Hard is what makes you grow. And everybody struggles, Ali added. Look at me now. He held out his trembling hands. Body betrays me every day, but I keep moving forward. That's all any of us can do. Marcus picked up his gloves. I'll try again. That's all we ask, Frazier said, helping the boy put his gloves back on. As the session continued, a quiet moment found Ali and Frazier side by side, watching the children practice. They're good kids, Ali observed. You've done something special here, Joe. Frazier shrugged. Just trying to give them a chance, same chance we had. Better chance, Ali corrected. They've got you to guide them. Not just teach them boxing, but teach them right. Frazier was silent for a moment. Never thought I'd hear those words from you. Never thought I'd say them, Ali admitted. Things change. People change, Frazier countered. Some things don't, Ali said, gesturing to a boy practicing a perfect Frazier-style bob and weave. That's your style right there. Living on in that kid. Frazier smiled despite himself. Got another one over there doing the Ali shuffle. Not as pretty as the original, but he's learning. They watched the children in comfortable silence until Frazier spoke again, his voice low so only Ali could hear. I've been thinking about your invitation to work together on that youth boxing initiative, bringing this program to other cities. Ali's eyes lit up. Does that mean you're in? Means I'm considering it, Frazier said cautiously. Would mean a lot of time together. You sure you can handle that? I can if you can, Ali replied. Think about it, Joe. All those kids across the country learning from both of us, getting the best of Frazier and Ali. Dangerous combination, Frazier said with a hint of a smile. The best kind. As the session wound down, parents collected their children, many stopping to thank the two champions and request photos or autographs. Ali and Frazier obliged patiently, their earlier awkwardness around each other now replaced by a comfortable rhythm. When the last family had left, Frazier began cleaning up the gym while Ali sat heavily on a bench, fatigue evident in his features. Takes more out of you these days, doesn't it? Frazier observed, noticing Allie's exhaustion. Everything does, Allie acknowledged. But it's worth it. Frazier brought him a cup of water. You did good with those kids. They'll remember this day forever. So will I, Allie said simply. Frazier sat beside him on the bench. I've been carrying that hate around for a long time, Allie. Wasn't hurting you, was hurting me. I know something about that, Allie replied. Carried my share of burdens too. You know what those first words were going to be if I'd spoken first at the restaurant? Frazier asked suddenly. Allie shook his head. I was going to say, about damn time you showed up. Frazier laughed softly. Had it planned for years. What I'd say if I ever saw you again. And now? Allie asked. Frazier looked at him steadily. Now I'd say, welcome back, champ. Allie's eyes glistened. That means more coming from you than anyone, Joe. Always has. Don't go soft on me now, Frazier warned, but his own voice was rough with emotion. Too late for that, Allie replied with a smile. We're a couple of old softies now. Frazier stood and extended his hand to help Allie up. Come on. My daughter's cooking dinner tonight. She specifically asked me to bring you. You sure about that? Allie asked, accepting the assistance. No, Frazier admitted, but I'm sure about this. It's time to put the past where it belongs. Behind us. As they walked toward the door, Allie paused. Hey, Joe, remember what you said to me after Manila, in the ring? Frazier nodded slowly. I said, you're one hell of a man. Right back at you, Smokin' Joe, Allie said softly. Right back at you. Together they stepped out into the Philadelphia sunshine. Two legends who had finally found peace in each other's company. Not by forgetting the past, but by choosing to build a different future. Their story, once defined by conflict, had found a new chapter. And perhaps that was the greatest victory either of them had ever achieved.